Attack on Titan is probably one of the most iconic anime out there. And with its final season ongoing, fans and enjoyers alike all have one thing on the forefront of their minds, and that is Eren Jaeger. His transformation in character over the course of the manga and 4 seasons of anime have been incredibly drastic, and in the video, I want to discuss his character throughout the show from a more psychological perspective. Rather than the symbolism of events of the show, I want to talk about how he may have ended up developing the way he did based on psychological concepts. He's an interesting character, and as a budding psychology major, I wanted to learn more about how his mind works and what could be affecting his mind to make him do all of the drastic actions, to say the least. We'll be looking at how he's progressed from the beginning of the series until the end of the story in the manga, and then end it with the mental conditions we believe have affected his mindset throughout his journey. As the series' main protagonist, he began as a seemingly naive and hot-blooded young boy who wanted only 2 things: to attain what he considered as freedom and to eliminate all of the Titans off of the face of the world. Currently, in the final season, this has turned into an incredibly disturbing mindset bent on the elimination of all he considers as a threat to himself and those he cares about, which just so happens to be all of the outside world beyond the shores of his home island, practically kickstarting a genocide on a scale that outdoes any of the atrocities committed previously in the series. In regards to his past, the earliest moment we see of it is in the 6th episode of the 1st season, where we are treated to a flashback of how Eren and Mikasa first met. Mikasa was targeted by 3 slave traders who murdered her parents in a struggle. Afterwards, Grisha, who's Eren's father, and Eren discovered the corpses while on the way to make a visit. Eren, still a child at this point, secretly tracked down the slave traders to a nearby hut and killed 2 of them without any hesitation in an attempt to save Mikasa. However, the 3rd slave trader appeared and began strangling Eren. Encouraged by Eren, Mikasa overcame her fear and gained the resolve to kill the 3rd slave trader. In the aftermath, Grisha scolds his son for his recklessness and also seemingly out of horror over his son's actions, for which Eren seemed to feel no remorse for. It is also where Eren wraps the iconic red scarf around Mikasa for the first time, iconically bequeathing it to her as a gift, giving us a small glimpse of Eren's mindset as both a caring, yet at times cold-hearted monster, which is important for later on. In the 64th episode, the audience is reintroduced to a drastically different Eren from the one we were initially familiar with, years having since passed since the conclusion of the previous season. In it, he appears aloof, threatening, and incredibly disheveled as he, without directly stating it, proceeds to threaten Reiner with his hand gestures and his words. He calls back to when Reiner first destroyed the walls of Shiganshina all those years ago, resulting in the deaths of many, including Eren's mother, comparing himself to how Reiner was back then, as he repeatedly states that we're the same. All the while, he indirectly makes it clear that he is willing to do the same to Reiner's hometown in the internment zone. So, one may think at first glance that this is a completely different Eren to the impetuous firebrand of a protagonist that we came to know from the previous 3 seasons. But calling attention to that particular choice of words, impetuous firebrand is what I mean, by the way, one may begin to realize that while certain aspects of Eren have definitely changed, those traits at his core have remained the same throughout the journey, all the same. Finally, in the 18th episode, Eren manages to activate what is known as the Rumbling, an apocalyptic, world-ending phenomenon under his control with the intent of erasing all traces of humanity outside of what was once the walls of his home, Paradise Island. In doing so, the worst fears of Rainer and all those attempting to stop Eren are truly realized. Due to the brutal and almost dog-eat-dog nature of the world the series is set in, he came to the conclusion that the only way for his people to survive and be free is that they must destroy all of their enemies. Although it's not made a big deal or explicitly stated in the series, Eren actually has some major mental health issues, which I hope was obvious from the beginning, but let me explain. From the very first season until the end of the series as a whole, Eren has displayed the symptoms of 3 major mental health disorders. Just as a disclaimer, this is all for fun and we're not mental health professionals in any way. However, Eren does show a lot of symptoms for different mental disorders. First, throughout the show, Eren is treated to horrific nightmares and memories as he's haunted by the traumatic events of his life since the first episode, manifesting in post-traumatic stress disorder. And can you blame him? Jesus, that first episode and later plot twist, holy shit. The loss of his mother seems to particularly haunt him. On top of these intrusive memories, Eren slowly grows more and more emotionally detached as the series progresses, and by the end of season 3 can no longer even find joy in seeing the ocean for the first time, all of which are possible symptoms of PTSD. Secondly, he has shown bipolar disorder symptoms. Eren's mood has experienced unusual shifts during month-long intervals, or in this case, episode-long ones. Normally, he acts hopeless, especially during the first few episodes where he is a soldier in training, just trying to stay alive and get accepted into the program. When he begins killing titans, however, he suddenly gets on this high and places himself in more and more danger in order to keep getting this high. As a result, believing that he could handle them all on his own, but also placing himself in immense danger and those around him. Lastly, and the one that I actually want to highlight the most, although he experiences all of the previous disorders mentioned to a certain degree, he has been able to cope with them better throughout his time in the series, especially with friends and all. The power of friendship, it still is a shonen after all. The last one that has progressively developed to be greater and greater over time, however, has been his symptoms of antisocial personality disorder. Based on the DSM-5, which says you only need to show 3 of the symptoms to be under suspicion after a set amount of years, he displays almost all of the symptoms listed in the manual throughout the show. Eren constantly shows himself to be more than a bit of a rebel, always charging ahead and never conforming to social norms. What a joker. Nonetheless, this constant charging ahead, at least until the recent season, often lacks forethought and planning, being more of an impulse on his part. Eren has shown to be constantly irritable or aggressive towards others, often getting into fights and disagreements with others whose beliefs and perspectives are completely opposed to his own. He has consistently shown a reckless disregard for his own safety and even the safety of others at times. This continues further towards his consistently irresponsible behavior, often listening more to his own emotions than to reason, and going against the orders of his superiors in favor of his own desires. Admittedly, they can be for what can be seen as selfless reasons, such as saving a friend, but it also further goes to illustrate his impulsiveness overall. Moving on. Although this one is highly debatable, there are times in which he appears to show no remorse for others he has hurt. Though there are times where the opposite is true and he shows great remorse for it. What cannot be denied though is that somewhere in his mind he is likely rationalizing it behind reasoning such as this is what has to happen, or something similar of a thought in order to justify it for his own personal gain. Although it's understandable where his symptoms come from, dead mom and just life in general getting in the way, this does pose the question of how we should think of him despite all of that. Is he a tragic character we should sympathize with for his tragic backstory? Or is he someone more comparable to Hitler now? This is why psychology is so beautiful. You know that? It makes it easier to understand why someone is the way they are, and it's a lot easier to empathize with them after and ask these more serious questions. But just because you can understand someone doesn't mean you have to agree with them. And from understanding where someone is coming from, it's a lot easier to give proper care to someone to avoid tragedies such as these. Mental health may have not been the focus of the show, but was still able to provide an interesting character that we can analyze for how one can fall from grace with unhealthy coping mechanisms. What a strange topic we have today, I will admit. But with that, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment any topic you'd like for us to tackle next here at PsyPoints. This was a ton of fun to make, and we love to hear feedback of any shape or form. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you all for watching.